Thank you for attending today's session led by the energizing, charismatic Carissa Thompson, a District
Cool.
5020 and
No pressure.
President-elect training leader. She's an esteemed member of the Puyallup Rotary Club. I'm Craig Gillis, immediate past district governor, and I'm honored to be the moderator for the session, Finding Balance in the Midst of Chaos.
Hello. Thank you, Craig, for that amazing warm up there. No pressure at all. Just kidding. Yeah. So I want to welcome everybody to Finding Balance Amidst Chaos. It's interesting because if any of you know me in what was normal life before, you know that my life, it operates at its prime in chaos. Like that's where I'm most comfortable. So when COVID happened and we all had to shelter in place and life looked very different, like it was a totally different kind of chaos. Like I had to get used to routine, which I'm not used to routine at all. So I'm hoping what I bring with you or bring to you today is really helpful. It certainly has helped me. So let's get started. A couple things that we're going to learn, some objectives, is assessing where you're at. So we'll kind of dive into where are you currently in this time and space. And then we will go over a program called Mindset Reset. And then after that, we will talk about the 5 C factors when change is on the rise. And then after that, we'll kind of cover some tips and resources. What I would really encourage all of you to do is one of two things. One, have a little notepad next to you. And if there's something that we talk about that kind of inspires a little thought for you or something that you want to kind of work through, just jot that down. And so that you can refer back to it. And then also, if there's any tips that you have or any resources that you've come across, please put them in the chat area and we'll talk about them at the end of the presentation. Because we're all learning this together, right? And in fact, that kind of leads me into, you know, Rotary every year has a theme, and it's ironic because it seems like the theme is so fitting for that year that we're upon. So I got to thinking about Rotary connecting the world, and whenever the COVID-19 first came about and we all were asked to shelter in place and all of our worlds kind of got turned upside down, it was really easy for me to kind of be in like that victim mode of, why is all this happening to me? I love socializing with people. I mean, I'm a community engagement officer, so my job is to go out and like socialize and be there for people and interact. So like all of that came to a halt. And, you know, for a couple of days, it was, you know, kind of dark for a minute. And I really had to gain some perspective. And one of the things I went back to is no matter if you're 5 or 95, if you are in Korea or, you know, Europe or wherever, like our whole world is connecting together through this unfortunate event. You know, we're all experiencing this for the first time together now. So like I sit there and look at my kids and I look at my aunts and my grandparents and I'm like, all of us are experiencing for the first time this same thing, and it's kind of binding us together. So in a way, that's kind of how the world is being connected. I thought that was kind of ironic. So let's dip into it. On a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being like, I'm in hog heaven over here, and trust that there are people who are in hog heaven. My niece is an introvert, and she's like, I was like, Jordan, how are you doing? How are you holding up? And she's like, Aunt Shasha, like I'm living my best life because I don't have to go anywhere or socialize. So 1 being you're living your best life, all the way to 5, I'm really struggling with this. I want you guys to take a poll right quick, and we'll take a couple seconds for you to weigh in on how you're doing right now. A couple of I love this life, a couple it's a little harder than I thought. To be honest with you, I was a 5 when all this stuff happened. Like I was really struggling. So It's definitely okay to be struggling in this situation. So it looks like many of us are kind of finding a balance. Maybe there's some hard days that have come across, maybe some good days. A few of us that it's been a little bit harder than we thought. And I think that's very fair. So the most of us were kind of dealing with this in an okay manner. So let's go ahead and get into some of the things you might be dealing with. So like with employment, maybe you're retired, or maybe you're working from home. Maybe you've been in a situation where you've lost your job, or, you know, you are an essential worker. So you are facing, you know, having to be around people all the time and, you know, maybe exposed. Maybe you own your own business and it's not considered essential and you're trying to figure out how you're going to make it through this. My sister owns her own hair salon and her husband is a commercial landscaper. And at the very beginning of this, both of them were in that boat. And, you know, that can create a lot of stress. Maybe your family dynamic has changed. So a shift in the matrix, maybe now you're a parent and a teacher. I am one of those. And maybe you're caring for a family member or being cared for. Maybe your finances, you're not working, so your income's different, or potentially you weren't prepared for something like this. And there are some people who actually have quite a bit. Now they don't know how to give it out or where's the best place to be effective. And then of course you have your health and well-being that we're all having to deal with. So we're worried about our own health or the health of others. And there's so much negativity going on around us. There is some positive as well, but as it turns out, negativity actually breeds quicker than positivity. So we're all kind of dealing with some different dynamics. With your family, maybe you're single and living on your own, and potentially this is best life ever, or all the way to incredibly lonely. You have parent or married folks, people who have partners or roommates. Maybe they found their apocalypse partner and they know that they're with them, all the way to one of them's moving out to the garage, which I've heard a couple of families happen to do that. Maybe it's two parents with a household and both are trying to figure out, you know, do we have the best family? You know, so it's like hashtag best family ever, all the way to hashtag I need a new family. And then there's people like me who are single parents. And, you know, some folks are really excited because they get to have this time with their kids, all the way to putting ads up on OfferUp. I mean, nobody's put any offers up on my kids yet, so I'm waiting for that. No, there's sometimes some chaos going on, right? And we have to learn how to navigate that and how to be our best selves. And so I think it's really important for us to take a moment to really assess, where are we at right now? And do we potentially need to reset our minds? So I wanted to share a program with you that's really helped me out, because like I said, when all this happened, like it was complete chaos for me. It was something totally different, and a different kind of chaos than what I'm used to. I'm used to every day looking very different for me. Like one day to the next, there is no consistency, to all of a sudden being shoved into a box that every single day was the same thing over and over. And that's not my comfort level. And so ironically, a few months, so it was at the beginning of February, one of my friends, she reached out to me and she's like, hey, I want to introduce you to this program. It's completely free. It's called Mindset Reset by Mel Robbins. And, you know, she really helps you understand how to retrain your brain with little small bites of opportunity. And so I started doing it. And you have a goal packet that you can print out. It's like a few page goal packet. She offers a free 5-second journal template. And then there's 35 training videos. You can take as long as you want, or you can do it as quickly as you want. So the first several weeks, I was on top of it, and I was watching videos every day before I'd get ready. And, you know, they're anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour. So every morning I'm getting ready and I'm listening to this stuff and I'm really getting energized. Well, then Of course, before COVID, my life got hectic again and it got kind of put to the wayside. And all of a sudden, COVID comes up and we're shelter in place. And I'm sitting there wondering, what do I do with my time? Well, I was able to reconnect with this program. And so these videos that I speak about, they're, like I said, little bite-sized pieces to effectively resetting your mind. So at the very beginning, she goes through and she talks about how you assess where you're currently at in your body, your work life, money, your relationships, friendships, self-worth. So analyze where you're at currently and why you're that way and why you think this, and then where do you want to be and how do you set goals according. Then other videos after that, it talks about visualization, default versus deliberate thinking, controlling your limited beliefs, and then building on healthy habits. How do we wake up every day and go to bed every night and have it to where it helps you be the most effective you can be. Things to implement to have more energy, to boost your productivity. Overcoming limitations. So she does some videos on worry and anxiety in conjunction with money, kids, social media, all the things that typically would give us worry and anxiety. She kind of covers those. And then she teaches about having anchoring thoughts. And if you're feeling stuck, how you can overcome that. So I just found it to be a really cool program. We're not going to dive too deep into that because I want to dig into the 5 C's a little bit more. But I wanted to make sure if you wanted to kind of check this out, you could take a picture of your screen, or the resource will be available for you after. But I found that this program, when things kind of got chaotic, the one thing I was able to hold on to was every single morning. I was so used to getting up at 8 o'clock and like going to work. So now like that was the one consistent thing I had every day that no longer was there. So I kind of got into a lull. Well, then I decided I'm going to stay getting up at 8 o'clock in the morning, if not earlier, and I'm going to go for a walk every morning. And that's what I'm going to commit to. And as I go for my walk, that's when I'm going to take the time to put in mentally what I need in order to be the best me that I possibly can. And I discovered this through the 5 C factors. So before we get into the 5 C factors, Craig, do we have any questions or comments on the mindset reset?
Margaret's got a question. Thank you, Margaret.
British Columbia, the esteemed Dr. Henry has recommended to keep a routine. And I think that's how I've managed to cope as well as I have working from home for the last 9 weeks. Getting up at the same time every day, treating your day as if all the things that you do, get a good night's sleep, don't drink too much, good nutrition, and get out and move. So
you just said don't drink too much in a room full of Rotarians. No, I'm just kidding.
Good advice, though.
Yes, that's so good.
The big benefit too is when you go to fill up your gas tank, it's still full. So there you go.
Right.
Well, I've noticed that I have this niggling feeling of nausea all the time.
Yeah.
And I call it niggling because it's not big. I don't throw up, but it's just this nausea feeling there all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't like that.
There might be a process in the 5 C's that can help you identify.
Writing it down when you start it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if through that you can identify maybe what that is. So let's go ahead and roll into that. So chaos often happens in the middle of drastic change, and let's face it, COVID-19 was a drastic change for a lot of people. Whether the change was positive for some or negative for others, it was a change. The 5 factors that are really great to embrace are control, clarity, connection, conviction, and commitment. So those are your 5 C's. So If we look at the first C factor, which is the control factor, principle says on it, the larger the change, the clearer it is to determine what we can control and what we don't have control over. So the process for that is awareness, attitude, and action. So for the things that we can change, we need to embrace them, right? And find contentment in them. For the things we can't change, we need to believe that there's a much bigger governance or something unseen and stay lifted and positive in that. So the practice for that would be we acknowledge by writing, remembering, reciting, whatever works for you, what we can control first, and only then can we properly address what we don't have control over. So when I really got to think about the control factor for my own experience, I really thought about, okay, in all of this and the COVID-19, I'm staying at my house. I don't have control over friends that I can go visit or establishments that I can go visit or going out to eat. What do I have control over? So I have control of setting my alarm and getting up on time. I have control over going for a walk and listening to things that help lift me and encourage me. I don't have control over whether my kids are good or whether or not they're on their homework or whether or not they have a positive attitude through it. What I do have control over is how I respond to it, right? So really paying attention to what do I have control over and really focusing on those controllables to try to change my outcome of the impacts that change has on me. I hope that makes sense and I've explained control well. The second C is for clarity. So the principles of clarity. Drastic change reveals something new about ourselves. During uncertain times, we are reminded of what really matters. So the process in finding out this clarity, we have a heightened sense of awareness for our unmet needs. Also, how these discoveries can be redirected or reaffirmed. So, for example, when I was really trying to seek clarity, right? I'm starting to get on the pattern of going out for walks every day and really trying to get focused and really figuring out, man, why am I feeling off? Well, my discovery was I'm feeling off because my job is to go out and visit with all of these people, and all of these people that I interact with on a daily basis, it fills my bucket. And it helps validate what I do every day and the person that I am. And whenever I figured out, man, I'm by myself, I was missing filling my own bucket. I was missing the fact that I don't know how to validate myself because I've always been so busy validating other people. So in my moment of clarity, and it was a very emotional moment of clarity to really acknowledge the fact that I'm not taking care of me. My whole, time as a single parent. So since my daughter was 6 months old and she's now almost 14, this whole entire time of basically being a single parent and everybody telling me, Krista, you need to take time for yourself. You need to take time for yourself. Well, I thought I was, and in turn, I really wasn't. I really wasn't taking time to grow who I am. I was seeking it out in other people. So in my heightened sense of awareness, I realized, man, I was counting on other people when I really needed to be counting on myself. So this moment of clarity, the practice is notice new things that are becoming a priority to you and ask yourself why. Listen to your inner voice, drawing attention to an unmet need and ask, what can I do to address this concern and this need? So for folks that are feeling this nauseous feeling every day, what is it that's making me feel this? Like really trying to peg down, what is this feeling? What is this unmet need? And how do I overcome it? So that clarity piece is potentially your next step in that, right? So the third C is connection. So the principle of connection, during drastic change, we must connect to source or sources that keep us alive, vibrant. All forms of life need energy and a supply to survive and thrive. So that process is sit down, take a few moments, whether it be later on tonight or tomorrow when you're thinking fresh, and write down 10 things that energize you. Those 10 top things that are super important to you. And as you make that list, I want you to focus on the practice of one of them, if not one or more, something that grounds you to focus. Another one that inspires you to create. And then third, something that motivates you to work. So when thinking about the connection factor for me, as I was coming up with, my top 10, exercise was one of them, right? When I exercise, listening to podcasts or music that inspires me or draws me to be creative or to push myself to work a little bit harder. One of the things I realized is in thinking about what I'm able to do in this life, I've always told people I want to create change. I want to change the world. And so when going for walks and really thinking about how I could change the world, one of the things that came to mind was, one of the hot topics that we have in front of us in the world is injustice in America. And so I really started thinking about how can I, as a white woman, help have a voice alongside my Black and brown community to really help with injustice, right? So I really stopped to think about that. And then I sought friends that are in that community to ask, right? Hey, what can I do to have a voice alongside you? And as I started learning some of the things that I can do, I learned education. Educate yourself on all these things is step number one. So drowning myself in education as I'm going through my walks, right? So I found that exercise, podcasts, seeing nature, being in my backyard and just watching the trees dance in the wind, that really helped me spark that creativity in me and that wholeness. So when you think of connection, it doesn't have to just be with people, even though connection for me is very much about people. So if I can't meet face to face with people, I'm FaceTiming people all the time. We're doing Zooms all the time. But it doesn't necessarily have to be in-person connection. It can be connection to a train of thought or connection to the soil, planting. So find out what that connection is for you that energizes you and ground yourself in it. The fourth C is conviction. So the principles of conviction tell us when the winds of change run strong, like COVID, we need our convictions to run twice as deep. Our convictions can be seen through our willingness to sacrifice. So people will believe in the things that you have conviction in if you are showing that you're willing to sacrifice other things. So the process for that. Sacrifice is what gives conviction its validity. We know the strengths of our convictions according to our sacrifice. Then the question becomes, what are we willing to give up? So what I want you guys later to do, or even right now, and we'll even give you a couple of seconds, to write down a list of 3 things that you know that you want to release or give up, right? And you want to do this so that you can gain more strength and consistency to do the things that you want to do, right? The things that you want to change. So for example, the second we went into this COVID thing, I instantly attached to social media because I wanted to keep an update of how my friends are doing. And it's like I all of a sudden saw all of these keyboard warriors and these people who were all of a sudden almost different than who they were in real person. And it affected me. Like it really kind of shocked my system. And so I had to tell myself, if I wanted to grow to the best me I could, I had to let go of that. I had to let go of how I reacted to seeing people's social media posts. So if that meant that I had to mute some people and just reach out to them via phone, then that was what it was going to be. If I had a situation where something they said affected me in a certain kind of way, I had to stop and say, instead of responding the easy way and through my keyboard, I'm going to take the time to have a conversation, right? And in that, if our convictions are things that we're willing to give up, right? If I'm willing to give up that small little time to just type this out and send this message, and instead I'm willing to have a heartfelt conversation with a friend, that means I'm convicted and I have conviction in my growth opportunity. Okay, so the fifth C and last C is the commitment factor. So the principle behind this is the more drastic the change, the more dynamic our commitment is. So the process for that is we have to look at what was intended for potentially bad or what seemed negative and actually see something amazing in it. So instead of looking at what's happening to me, it's what's happening for me.
No.
So to make sense a little bit of that, whenever the whole COVID thing first came out and my life got basically dumped out and all sorted out, and I was like drastically looking for the pieces. And for the first couple of days, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is happening to me. How do I get through this? And then it's like I went through this emotional process, and it is an emotional process. I had to go through this emotional process of, you know what, this isn't actually happening to me. It's actually happening for me. And in some way, if all of these things are leaning, this change is leaning towards something that's good for me, how do I continue to work through the good and gain commitment in it? So if by me having these new practices of making sure that I have time to go walking every morning and staying grounded and staying committed, putting great things into my mind instead of a bunch of noise and jumble, focusing on myself as opposed to other people right now. If all of these things are actually benefiting me, how can I stay grounded in them and continue to have commitment in that well after our life goes back to a new norm, right? So I thought that process when I learned this from my friend Lawrence, as I learned the value of his 5 C's, it made such an impact on me. And it took me a minute because when he first went through it, I couldn't really relate myself. Like I heard his story, but I couldn't relate it to me. And so I really had to challenge myself afterwards to go back and really look at the material and try to put my own life experiences into those 5 C's. So if for some reason at this moment it doesn't quite click or resonate, go back and use your own life experience right now to connect to it and see if then that will help you resonate to this a little bit. So to round up the 5 C's, the theme for 2021 for Rotary is Rotary opening opportunities. And ironically, with this district training, you guys are learning all these different skill sets. And it really is investing an opportunity in all of you to really look inside yourself of who you want to be and how you want to move forward. And so you guys are getting a whole toolbox of new and exciting things that you can really make a purposeful impact around. So I'm definitely excited for 2021. So we're going to dig into a couple of healthy habits and tips. And this is where we're going to kind of get some conversation going back and forth. And I'm glad we've got plenty of time to do that. So these are some of the tips that have helped me in building a healthy habit, creating a routine and a schedule. So getting up, getting ready every day, having, whenever I first get up, I instantly put on my sweatpants to go walking. Before this whole situation, I'd always find excuses. Oh, I have to be at this meeting, so I can't do it. Or I'd always find something. And now I can't get away with excuses anymore because the only person it's shortchanging is me. And that's what I've realized. Setting time aside for meals and rest and exercise. Setting goals, whether it be daily goals, weekly goals, monthly goals, life goals. Just sitting down and being very intentional about what I'm doing going forward. Potentially utilizing an alarm clock. So if some of you are like me, where I get to working on something and I drown myself in it and I totally get lost, I have to set alarms to say, hey, Krista, get up and just take some time to just look outside or go eat or go check in on your kids. Like, I have to have something that will break me from that, because otherwise I get really obsessive in it. Build your healthy balance. So if you're working from home, set a quitting time. I am the worst at this, especially before COVID. But now, since COVID, like, I'm really trying to be intentional about saying, okay, 6:30, I'm shutting any communication off with work, and I'm really trying to focus on family. If I am working, I try to be intentional about putting something out to show my kids, hey, I'm working right now. So if you come and ask me something, I might be short with you because I'm in the middle of something. Maybe wait until I'm done and this sign is flipped around. I've had other people who have said that, like Craig said, they get ready in their business attire every day so their kids can see, wow, they're at work, or their spouse can see that they're at work. Feeding your brain with positivity. So I like to use podcasts. Every now and then I'll read a book, but I have ADHD for adults. So sitting there focusing on one thing, like, I start looking at like all the squirrels. So books are a little bit more difficult for me. However, I have found some books that have really kept my attention. And then music. So going to podcasts, some things that I've learned or really gleaned onto. There's a program called Seeing White on Scene Radio. That's a really awesome podcast that teaches about different cultures and ethnicities. On Purpose with Jay Shetty. So really being purposeful about your life and intentional. Also, Entree Leadership, which really helps businesses. It kind of goes through struggle points for businesses. So these are great podcasts. Also, books that I've really enjoyed: Extreme Ownership, Rising Strong, and 9 Types of Leadership. And then music is my like ground, right? So anytime I can throw music into a situation, it completely grounds me, inspires me. So always having something relaxing or energetic available. And then one of my friends on Facebook, she challenged me to the 10 albums that have most, impacted my life. And I'm like, no, I don't really want to do this. And then I did. And it helped me kind of get back to my roots of who I was. I was like, man, I haven't listened to this since I was like in 9th grade. And I listened to it again and I'm like, I remember that feeling again. So it kind of brought back this nostalgia. And so it actually was a lot of fun. So I would say take those kind of opportunities just to reconnect with the old you that you have, But I'd love to take this next portion of our time together. We have about 20 more minutes. And I just want to get some interaction going. And let's go ahead and start maybe hearing from was it Charming Chuck?
Charming Chuck, yes.
Charming Chuck, what do you have for us, my friend?
Hi, I just want to make a comment and get your reaction to it. And it's on the area of setting goals and visualization. And I have found that when you set a goal and you visualize those goals, you should visualize achieving those goals so that it has already happened, and take into consideration not only what you see as the goal has been completed, but how it makes you feel.
Yes, and I'm so glad you brought that up, Chuck. In Mel Robbins' video, when she talks about visualization, she talks about that. So she says, if your goal is under your body, you want to feel better in your clothes, right? You want them to fit better. You want to have more energy. When you think about your goal and you visualize, how do you feel after you're done exercising? How do you feel when that outfit feels right on you? What is your confidence like? Like, she really walks you through it, and she talks about the scientific piece of that. And it's really interesting because when she talks about the scientific fact, when you visualize your goals and you're actually putting your mind into what you would feel like, your brain doesn't know how to take the visualization from a real life experience. So your brain thinks this is a real life experience. So when you go out, if you're visualizing that, that's what your brain starts seeing opportunities for. So when you think of yourself fitting better and feeling better in these clothes, the second you wake up, you see that as an opportunity to go work out. You see opening your fridge as an opportunity to eat something healthier. So there's like scientific backing that talks about how those things will help your mind look for those opportunities. So yeah, you're absolutely right. She also talks about taking the first 10 minutes, instead of putting your phone by your bed as your alarm clock, put your phone completely out of your room. And the first 10 minutes at minimum should really be focused on your dreams and goals. So she talks about why invite other people's dreams and goals into your head before your own dreams and goals have even had a moment to resonate. So she has some pretty good healthy habits in that. Thank you for sharing that for us.
Susie from Campbell River is excited to ask you a question. This will be a good one because Susie's really smart.
It's not so much a question, but I just wanted to share with everyone. I personally, my son, my darling son, so I'm of an age who's in his 40s, said something to me recently during all this, and it really made me take stock. He said, "Ma, do what makes you happy." Now that seems like such a simple, I always cry, Craig knows, but anyway, I get all emotional, but I just thought, oh my God, it's so simple. But all my life, like you're a single mother, I was a single mother. So you're always doing what makes your kids happy. No, I can't do that now. No, I really shouldn't just sit down in this chair now because I need to cook supper, I need to clean, I need to do this. And it was so simple, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. It was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It was like permission to just do what makes you happy.
Absolutely.
I wanted to share that because it's apropos, and I love what you said. I've got it in big letters here. It says, "Don't be a keyboard warrior."
Yeah.
Oh my God. Hello.
Yes.
I thought that makes me so unhappy. Why am I doing it?
Yeah. And that's
very much.
it.
I
Just
wanted to share that. Like,
that's
why
so
are
good.
we so hard on ourselves? We don't want to make ourselves happy because, oh no, because something way back when, like, oh no, you got to do this first, got to do that first. I just thought, wow.
Well,
yeah. So
it's like this constant, it's almost like a constant fight between being selfish a little bit, because we're like, man, if we take that time.
Be selfish. Yeah, no,
right.
I should be making somebody else happy, and no, maybe I should do this and whatever. And I thought it was so simple. And I've even thanked him now about 15 times. I said, "Son, how old am I now?" And I'm still learning from my son.
Right. And that's really, to be honest with you, we all should be continuously learning. I mean, doesn't matter how old we get, we need to be learning from other people around us. One of the things that was really interesting in one of the videos from Mel Robbins is she talks about, because I beat myself up all the time about being a single parent, because I'm like, how am I supposed to be the best mom and dad I can be? Well, in one of her videos, she talks about if you had more, you would do more, and you are doing exactly what you need to do with what you have available. So you have to be okay with what you're able to give, because trust, if you had more, you would do more. And like, that was such an eye-opening moment for me, and I just broke down.
Yeah.
You know,
like your bucket is full.
Yes. So definitely it's okay for you to have a little bit of that. If you can't save yourself on the airplane, you can't save anybody else.
That's right. So thank you anyway. I love this presentation.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. Do we have...
Marissa, one of the things that I've observed being from the generation I am in is that we grew up with a maxim that I think believed that mistakes were a challenge, that we tried to avoid mistakes and to do things well. And I'm so encouraged to see a newer generation that has greater confidence to, I believe, explore and try and learn from error and see error, flipping error around as opportunity. And this COVID experience we're all bound together through is really teaching us a lot about how important our connections with one another are. And ultimately, that we need to find new ways to connect, that we need to find new ways to reach out and to kind of keep our buckets full. And you know what, one of the things, I'll just mention this very quickly, but I'm coming up to my 40th high school reunion. Okay.
I'm 50.
Okay, 50th. That's my final offer. My 50th high school reunion. And I have been phoning some people on the list that I haven't talked to for 30 and 40 years.
Wow.
And how are you doing? What's going on? And I haven't had one conversation that ends abruptly. People are starved to find out how one another's journeys have unfolded, because we do have those shared pathways at some point. Anyway, I'm looking for, I see Jeffrey here has a question. Awesome. Sure. So I'm going to unmute and lower the hand. Here we go. Jeffrey.
Hi, yeah, not so much a question as an observation. This Rotary opens opportunities is so appropriate, I think. And a friend of mine who's a member of Rotary Club in Enterprise, Oregon, he invited me to Zoom into their meeting, and they've got a lot of retirees who are, you know, not impacted negatively because they're on a fixed income, you know, and so they've decided to take their $1,200 or whatever and put it into a fund to give grants to local businesses. And I think Rotary has a great opportunity to be proactive in all of this, because we have a lot of really good resources. And I don't know, our community here in Sequim is definitely struggling and can use some help from those of us who are better off.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I had a friend whenever I was learning about the 5 C factors. One of the gentlemen who was teaching it, he was talking about how things were changing for him. He had a trip planned to go visit Italy to visit his family. And so that's totally changed, and how upsetting that was. And he goes, and so he decided he was going to make an above ground garden. And he went out there because his family, they all had above ground gardens there, and that's what he was excited to see. So he made this above ground garden, and as he was planting and just feeling the soil in his hands, he said he's never felt more connected to his grandfather than he did at that moment. Yeah. And I'm like, how impactful that would have been, right? So, I mean, it's just, there's different opportunities that are there that if we just keep our eyes open to it, we'll be able to experience them.
Carissa, Charming Chuck has come back with yet another, and I know who he is now. So, and that's right, he is charming. So, Chuck, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to comment again about your note on controlling or recognizing what you can and cannot control. And I like to just say to everybody, remember that everything on this earth has at least 2 sides to it. There's a yin, yang, up, down, inside, outside, happiness, sadness. And if we can control how we view these incidents and try and view it from a positive view, even when the world says it's negative, if you can flip it, there's a positive side to it. And I would submit that with this pandemic going on, somewhere along the line, somewhere down the line, we're going to recognize that this was a positive in some manner.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's cool that you brought up the yin and yang, because earlier we talked a little bit about how the older generation, if they took time for themselves, it was selfish, and you know, you don't do that, you do for other people. And then this new generation's being raised, and the older generation's like, man, they're very self-centered, and oh my gosh, it's like a pendulum swing, right? So if really the generations could come together a little bit more and see, wow, they're not necessarily being selfish, they just don't know what it's like to be selfless, right? And then that younger generation, they saw their parents giving up everything, and they're like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to give up everything. Like, what's in it for me, right? So it's really understanding that in that pendulum swing, or in those extremes, there's that center balance of peace. So I really enjoy that you brought that up.
Thank you, Krista. Jean T now has a question or a comment.
Yay.
Hi. Just wanted to ask you, you were talking about your high school reunion and making contacts with some of your fellow students.
Mm-hmm.
I have my 50th coming up this year. How are you going to do it with COVID?
You know, we aren't. We are a small community in interior of British Columbia, and at this point it's on hold.
Okay.
It was to be in September.
Right.
We've done a 10, 20, 30, 40, and I think we'll find a way to do a 50 because we seem to like each other. So we'll
So
find a way.
Okay, so you would do something online if
I think so.
necessary.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's the feeling of lack of control.
Mm-hmm.
And will this end? Will this ever end? Is this how I'm going to spend the next 30 years of my life?
Yeah.
It kind of gets me down.
And I think I take a page from much of what Carissa said, and I choose not to view the future that way. I think that we will have to find some other ways, some adjustments. But from all of this, I think we will come through it. I believe we will come through it. And I do think we will have learned a lot, and there will be a value-added component to some of the ways we do the things that we took for granted. Tom, I think yes, I will unmute you, and please go ahead.
I wanted to add to what Jeffrey said a little bit about the Rotarians down in Oregon. With the stimulus checks that came, the mayor of Yelm also happens to be Rotarian, and our club, and he and his wife decided they were financially very happy, and they set up a fund here in town, similar to what Jeffrey was talking about, donating their $1,200, both of them did that, to help out instead of businesses specifically, but people who were in drastic financial need.
Yeah.
And I thought that was, he epitomizes Rotarians, of the Rotary philosophy very much. And this was kind of like the second Zoom meeting we had after this all started. He had already set this idea up. And I thought, yeah, that's what we do as a Rotarian.
Thank you for that.
We adapt and overcome, don't we?
Chris, we'll finish with, we have two Susies to hear from.
Sure.
And then we'll give you a chance to close the session so people can put on their party clothes and get their glasses of wine and aloha. So let's hear from Susie Moskovich.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to make one quick, with us going on Zoom with our club, it's just been absolutely wonderful. We have a club of about 88 members, and at our last Zoom meeting, we had something like 67 on, and everybody just feels so connected, and it's wonderful. And through that, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, just to throw it out there because I haven't heard anybody else mention it, I started with our family, because I have relatives in Europe and England and Eastern Europe, all over the States. We have started a Family Friday. So I do a Zoom. I invite every Thursday, I send out the link to about 15 different family groups, and we all get on every single Friday. The kids get on, the grandmas and grandpas, and I'll tell you something, if it wouldn't have been for COVID, we wouldn't be doing this. So the cousins all, or even the little wee ones are starting to say, oh, you mean I got a cousin in Austin? Yes. And every single Friday we have one question, which is asked by one of the teachers in the group. And this last time it was, oh, what's the best meal you've ever had? Or what meal are you in the last year? So everybody, even the little kids, they'll say, well, I had a hamburger at Mickey D's, or and we go through everybody. So it isn't just how are you doing well? And it's kind of focused, and we're learning all about, oh, we had the other one. Oh, what do you want to do? What do you want to accomplish in this COVID while you're home? And you wouldn't believe it. We got somebody who wants to do his black belt in karate. We have somebody else who is going to learn Chinese. We have somebody, it's amazing. I said, oh my God, my family? This is my family. So I'm just throwing this out there. This could be a very, very positive way for us Rotarians, not just to get out to our community, but to get our families together. It's amazing. All those second cousins that we haven't heard of,
Susie,
right?
thank you.
Sorry, I'm talking too much, yeah.
Yeah,
You did that too, Susie. One of the questions that we did for our family was your most embarrassing moment.
Yeah.
That one was fun.
And let's close our questions and comments then with Susie Saunders. Over to you, Susie.
All I was going to say I don't know which person said it, but about, thinking to the future and that getting you down. I went through many years of therapy because I was a huge future tripper myself for many, many years. And the one thing that I learned through that is future tripping will only steal your joy, and you must live in the moment.
Hmm.
And it will all work out just the way that it was meant to work out. And so I just encourage everybody to try to keep that mindset even when times look very bleak.
There's also a video in Mel Robbins' 35 videos that talks about that. Basically, if it's something that you can't control right now, you have no control over it. So just try to stay positive until you figure out what the next step is. My family always said, you can't cross that bridge until you get to it, because you may not even need to cross that bridge. So somehow that helped structure me to be a really positive person. But I just wanted to thank everybody for the opportunity to be in front of you today and to see all of you. You have definitely inspired me. And I've learned just as much from all of you as you have learned from me. So thank you so much for letting me do this with you.